All right, welcome back. It's time for the big issue. It's Thursday, and so it's a women's affair right here on the show. And joining me in the studios this morning, Leratu Musasaka is back, and she's a member of the MPP communications team. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
We missed you last week. We didn't see you.
Yes.
And I think 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
I was out
okay.
working outside the city, so.
I see. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right. And Gabriela is here, of course. Gabriela Tete is also a member of the NDC communications team. Good morning.
Good morning.
Everything okay?
Very well. I like your hair.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I was waiting to see if you wear a red dress today too.
No, today there's nothing to protest.
Oh, so you only wear red when you're protesting something?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah, it portrays the passion, you know. What I can't say verbally, I'll express in my outfit.
Oh, well, the minority MPs are protesting a, salary cut in Parliament, and we're going to get into that conversation shortly. But even before that, we're all aware that the President has directed for the executive to take a salary cut by 30%. Now, 2 days ago or so, we also heard from the Council of State also saying that based on the economic challenges that we're facing as a nation, and also on the back of the fact that the executive is expected to cut their salary by 30%, they are also ready to take a 20% allowance cut from this month till the end of the year, just so they can also support the economy. And many people have described it as great leadership, but there are others who do not necessarily agree, because they're saying, well, yes, it portrays great leadership, but does it really mean that we're going to make enough money to shore up the economy like we're expected? So we'll take a look at what the chairman of the Council of State, Nano Tuosrebo II, had to say about the allowance cut. We'll also hear from the minority chief whip. And of course, that is on the back of the fact that the information minister also says that if you want to have that voice to ask us to shore up the economy and cut down on expenditure, then the legislature must also be ready to cut down on their salary. The MPs are not too happy about this. They're saying that I'm not going to take a salary cut. I'm talking about the minority MPs. Take a look.
Over the past few weeks, the Council has been deliberating on the current economic conditions of the country and have been collecting views with a view to sharing them with you as early as possible. However, as we were going through our routines, you and your cabinet were in retreat over the same issues. And since yesterday, we have been fed with snippets of information regarding some of the decisions that you have made. Those that we read fall on all fours with the suggestions we are going to make to you. We are particularly delighted to read, Mr. President, that you and your cabinet have decided to reduce some of your emoluments or allowances. Mr. President, in tandem with your decision, we, as a Council of State, had also decided that we will reduce our monthly allowances by 20% until the end of this year.
And this is what I've said. With the Office of the President down through Ministries, departments, and agencies, the 16 flagship programs.
All right, so that was Nano Tuosrebo II. He is the chairman of the Council of State. Let's hear from the Information Minister, Honorable Kojo Oponkrumah, who said that in order to have the moral right to ask governments to cut down on expenditure, the legislature must also be ready to cut down on its salary. Take a look.
And this is what I've said. With the Office of the President down through Ministries, departments, and agencies, the 16 flagship programs of government, we're going to look across and examine whichever one can experience some cuts that will still allow us to deliver as much of that program as possible. We're happy to do it.
But that means you can't tell us whether free SHS will be part of it or not.
I have said everything is fair to be examined, including free SHS. But I think that does not mean that free SHS is going to be cancelled. I think that the legislature should also look at a pay cut. If this is what is going on and this is how the executive is looking to cut salaries by X%, maybe we members of parliament, and I'll be happy to move a motion on that in parliament, we should also consider taking pay cuts so that we can also help to contribute to what we are seeking to do. That is what then gives you the moral right to ask anybody else in the economy to take a cut.
2 weeks
weeks ago, I said that the executive parliament should cut their emoluments by 25%. And let us get it right. Even if they do, it's a small amount. It's not going to save us from this situation, but it's a leadership example. You are sending the message to the people that we are in difficulty. We know that people are suffering and we want to suffer with you, so that hopefully in a year or a year and a half, we all come out. So don't let anybody think that when they cut these salaries, then the problem is solved. Altogether, we are talking about less than $500 million. But we need billions. But I think it will send a strong leadership message. Even though all of you don't like it, I think that we should go for Momo. It's like a tax which we need now to save Ghana from its current situation.
When we were in government and our ministers and members were taking part of their salary to be cheap compounds, our colleagues opposite never participated. Why do they want to do their thing and they say we should also participate? It is not in our interest to do that. Why am I saying this? If you continue to see the kind of waste, there's more they can cut as ministers and government functionaries, but not the meager salaries of MPs who are struggling to put the body and soul together. In the case of members of parliament or the minority, they are not sitting on any board. There's not any member of minister from our side. I mean, with the greater respect, even contractors on our side, I don't think anybody is doing any full contract.
All right, and that's Honorable Mutaka Mubarak, the Minority Chief Whip. Earlier, you heard from a former board chair of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Professor Stephen Edai. He says that, yes, it shows leadership if you take a salary cut or an allowance cut, but it is not enough to shut the economy. Right, so let me start off with you. Yes. What do you make of the concerns that have been raised?
Good morning, Bella, and good morning to our viewers. I mean,
you didn't greet me.
Oh, Gabriela.
Already.
Good morning. I greeted you already.
Have we started already?
Once again, Gabriela, trusted. You know. Conversations on salaries and allowances in this country is a conversation that we should have dispassionately, and especially when it comes to public sector wages. In 2006, it was based on some of these conversations that the single spine salary structure was introduced, and when the planned implementation was in 2009, the framework and the modalities were brought out in 2006, and planned implementation was supposed to be in 2009. In 2009, the NPP lost power to the NDC. Even at that time, when conversations were going on, some existing salary frameworks, I remember the health service salary structure. There was this conversation that even the spine then for that salary structure was longer than what was being introduced. So a lot of conversations. So that's one of the things that must be our focus in terms of looking at it. Because salaries in Ghana at the public sector level is something that really needs. Because I joined public service in 2007 with a first degree. My take home was 700 cedis. As at that time, my colleagues who were same level just after national service were taking a minimum of 2,000 cedis. So you can imagine what the disparities are in salaries. And that's a conversation that we need to have our minds to as a country and look at it. Salaries being paid in this country, especially in public service, is something that needs to be looking at. But that's not the time for that now, because it's the payment of those lower salaries as compared to other jurisdictions is what brings some of these problems and some of these conversations, is what puts a highlight on the emoluments and allowances and salaries of Article 71 holders and people who come into service, into public service, into leadership positions for just a couple of months. At every point in time, an MP, a president, a vice president, Council of State, deputy ministers, government appointees, presidential staffers are in a job for a maximum of 4 years at a time. And we all know that the higher the risk, the more the benefits. But let's go to the issue of salary cuts. What's bringing this whole conversation? We've seen in the past 2 years, I mean from 2020 till now, maybe a little over 1 year, we've had to battle a pandemic. Just when we thought we were seeing our way clear, we have a seeming third world war that is almost a month now, and we all know. Nobody ever thought, in all the estimations, in all the projections, in all the budgeting we did, nobody ever thought that in a particular month, government will be have to cough out money to purchase tickets or evacuate its citizens, over 200, as at the last count, from Ukraine. Nobody ever saw that coming. So there have been a lot of unforeseen circumstances that have made things very difficult for us as a people. And it's not peculiar to just Ghana. It's a global thing. We took the economy from a growth of 3.4, I think, an average of 3.4. Then we're with IMF. In 2017, the NPP took over. We gradually went out of the IMF program. It was growing our economy to an average of between 6.9 and 7%. Then before anybody could say anything, it's like being on a highway. You're cruising. You're doing your 80 kilometers per hour. Then you go and meet a roadblock. Definitely, the efforts you put in, all the thoughts you put in trying to stop and not run over, comes with a lot of effort. And I'll always go back to the statement that the president made when we first recorded our case in March 2020, first case of COVID. The whole world was clueless. Nobody knew where this virus was coming from. But he made an emphatic statement that, and I'm paraphrasing, he knows how to bring the economy back to life, but he doesn't know how to bring human beings back to life when they die. And I don't think he's gone off that statement. And this was the same president who said, let's all be citizens and not spectators. So it was a call for all hands to be on deck. Throughout the confusion and all that, he kept updating us, giving us information. This has been done, that has been done. We're all in it. Because this was an economy that was virtually picking up in the positive. Even with all that happened, we grew marginally in the agri sector. And I think this is the time now that the statement he made then makes sense.
How so?
When you look at the numbers across the globe in terms of deaths, infection control and all that, we seem to be on the minimum. We've had people commend Ghana for the way COVID was managed. Now is the time to bring the economy back to life.
Which is why we are
Unfortunately, unfortunately, we are bedeviled with another seeming pandemic, which is the Russian-Ukraine issues. Yesterday, I was reading an article. Our construction sector is going to be, of West Africa, will be affected because we import steel and iron. 60% of that. West Africa imports 60% of steel and iron from Russia. So obviously, we'll be affected. Prices will go down. So the little steel, iron, whatever is used to produce, there will be, because there will be the excess demand as against supply. What can we do? There was a cabinet retreat that came with a lot of measures. And one of the measures is a pay cut of 30%. Don't also forget that initially the president had taken the lead and taken a 20%, we had mentioned a 20% budgetary cut earlier on.
But even that, there were questions that were asked about it, that if you say 20%, you cannot just say it vaguely and expect people to understand. Break it down further so we know.
Maybe when you let me finish, there was a 20% proposed budget cut across the board. That is to be implemented. The Minister of Finance is speaking today. The Bank of Ghana Monetary Policy Committee came out. Prime rates have been increased. $2 billion will be pumped into the economy to rescue the city, stabilize it. 30% pay cuts of these same people that we are always hammering their salaries. The Council of State, the advisors of the president, have taken the lead. They are taking a 20% pay cut on the allowances. The proposal is a 30% pay cut on the salaries of the executive and the other government appointees. Right. It may seem 30%. Well, how much? But that's something.
How is it something? Professor Dye says that it's not even half of $1 billion. And we're even saying that with e-levy, we're expecting about 6 billion, so we can also provide jobs, we can construct our roads and all of that. And so if we're taking a pay cut, if you look at the ministers, we have about 85 ministers. If all of them are taking, let's say, 30,000 Ghana cedis, and they're taking a 30% pay cut, in 10 months, that's about 7.7 million Ghana cedis. That is aside the Council of State also taking a 20% allowance cut. So if you put all that together in 10 months, based on how much they earn, the chair and the members, we're looking at 1.632 million Ghana cedis. Okay, that plus the others will not even be half of $1 billion. How do we use that to say that we're fixing the economy, and so this is one of the ways by which we're doing it?
I like the way you ended. It's one of the ways. It's not the only way. There were a number of interventions that were announced after the cabinet retreat. The Minister of Finance is going to give us the nitty-gritties, the fine details of what this has to do. You see, even before some of these interventions were, if COVID taught us nothing, COVID taught us to look inward. The world is gradually moving from external resource mobilization to domestic resource mobilization. And at this point in time in our lives, as a country, every peso counts.
What are we going to use the salary cuts for?
The Minister of Finance will be giving us the fine details. But if for nothing at all, if you cannot take care of something in education, you'll be able to take care of something in health. You'll be able to take care of some aspects of our daily life.
How do we monitor as Ghanaians? How do we monitor?
Gaba, the presidency comes as the top, the executive. We have ministries, departments, and agencies. At every ministry, there's a policy, planning, monitoring, and evaluation directorate. There are some ministries that decouple policy and planning from monitoring and evaluation. There are some ministries that put them together under one directorate. So when you ask me how do we monitor, we as citizens are already paying people to do that on our behalf. Again, when you come to the level of the legislature, our representatives are the ones sitting there, and they are supposed to be having oversight on some of these things. A lot of laws have been passed in the past 5 years. One of them is the Witness Protection Act.
Okay.
People
usually
used to be afraid to come out with information, but now that act is there. There's the right to information law with the commission.
We all know the history with the right to information and how difficult it's been
but
in recent times in trying to get information.
But
from
in
some
trying
of these
to get
agencies?
information, the Parliament of Ghana, with our representatives sitting there, called the Minister of Information to brief them. There have been over 200 requests.
Okay.
Those details are there. You can check with them.
Land on this
So
story so I
it's
can go
up
to
to
Gabriela.
us as citizens to also show interest in the money that we contribute. With all the interventions that have been put in place. When you talk about the Ghana.gov, now you don't go pay the middleman to get certain services. Ghana gets the money directly. When it comes to taxes, GRA now has what they call pay from anywhere. So there are a lot of interventions coming in. The digitalization of services that is coming. It's up to us as citizens on our own to try and show interest within our communities and show interest in what the people that we pay to work for us and make sure that we are comfortable too.
All right. Let me bring Gabriela in because, I mean, looking at the salary cuts and the allowances, we've heard from Professor that he says that that's not enough. And he's not the only one who said that. Professor Bafo Ajiman also says that, well, you're taking salary cuts. That is a show of leadership. But we also want you to cut down on expenditure, reduce your ministers and the ministries. The IAA has also given details on what they think governments can do in order not to go back to the IMF. Because we've been there a number of times and there's nothing to show for it. Do you think that in cutting salaries, and with your MP saying that they don't think that that's the right way to go, and so they will not agree to have their salaries cut, do you think that's the way to go?
Well, I think it does show some, there's some element of symbolism in the gesture. However, I think that to really lend credence to it as an initiative where government genuinely wants to show the people of Ghana that they are really making sacrifices, I think that the salary cuts that the executive is also proposing in particular should not just be about their ministers and their deputy ministers, but it should extend to the over 1,000 presidential staffers in the Jubilee House. To be honest, I don't understand why, as a country, you have so many staffers who sit and do practically nothing, but are taking salaries equivalent of ministers and deputy ministers and drive cars filled. All they do is to move from their houses, come and sit in the office, go on social media, text all day long, go back home, and that is productivity
but doing
for
digital
them.
work is also some form of work. There are people who are making lots of money from digital work. And so if you say they are practically doing nothing...
There are people who are making money. That is not what they are doing. What they are doing is responding to people's messages on social media. There are more important things to be dealing with in this country.
And these people are at the Jubilee House.
They all at the Jubilee House.
But you don't work there, so how do you know all that?
I used to work there before. I know what happened.
So when you were there, you also had about, what,
Exactly.
1,000 workers who were responding to social media comments?
They were under 600, but I know currently they were
people
and I
responding to social media
and I observed a lot. No.
Gabriela,
that's not
no,
what
I
said.
just want to understand.
So Spain,
I want to understand. So explain. Yes, please, go ahead.
If you joke, I'll make you the second entry person in this room.
No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
I said, you see what you've done. The executive, that's what I've been interrupted. The executive is having a 30% salary pay cut. Usually, that kind of suggestion usually covers ministers, deputy ministers. The point I'm making is that if the executive arm is having a 30% reduction in salary, it should cut across to those who are also serving in Jubilee House. And currently, per the report that the Office of the President presented to Parliament, there are well over 1,000 presidential staffers. So that 30% has to cut across to everybody. That is when we see that truly government, the executive, is actually making some sacrifice. In addition to that, Professor Adai mentioned that we need $500 million. So,
sorry to cut you, but he said that if we even cut these salaries,
it will not find ways of us to get $500 million.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we're in 2022. The next Emoluments Committee should be preparing to set up the next Emoluments Committee. They are coming to propose another 20% increment in Article 71 holders' salaries and allowances. So how about this year, going into 2024, we showed the people of Ghana that we are generally sacrificing. So for the year 2024, nobody gets ex gratia. That alone should save this country about 300 million. In addition to the single-digit figures they are bringing from their salary cuts from Council of States and the executive. Additionally, if you want the legislature to also sacrifice, I think that we have to put in context. You see, minority MPs are not on board, as Anabu Mutanka mentioned. So it's not like they have extra incomes coming anywhere. I saw your prompt. You can read MPs takes average salary 28,000. Out of this 28,000, they are paying SNIT, which comes to a little about 3,000. They are paying income tax, which takes about 8,000 from their salary. You know, in this country, the higher you earn, the more you pay. So they are paying about 8,000 in taxes. They have a car loan. Even though the cars have not been delivered to them, they are still paying 6,000 in car loans. So that 28,000, by the time they do those deductions, the actual salary comes to about 13,000. For the minority MPs, these are the monies they use to manage the constituencies. I don't know if you have friends who are minority MPs. In fact, they will tell you that by the middle of the month, by the first week that their salary drops, everything has gone out through Momo. District Assembly Common Fund is in arrears. The MP's share of the District Assembly Common Fund is equally in arrears, because if the district doesn't get their common fund, how is the MP going to get percentage of the allocation? And yet, constituents expect that these MPs have to show why they were voted for. So they use their salaries to pre-finance projects in the constituencies. Now, if an opposition MP whose take home is now 13,000, and they are using these monies to grade roads, to do foundations for schools, rehabilitate buildings, roofing sheets, painting, supporting with scholarships, all kinds of initiatives, out of this 13,000, if you ask them to do another adjustment to this, then a lot of the opposition MPs will be in trouble, because financially they are not that strong. Unlike their colleagues who are in the incumbent administration. Because if for nothing at all, many of them are ministers and deputy ministers, they are serving on boards as chairmen, chairwomen, or even as executive directors, all kinds of stuff. Because their party is in power, they use their network and their influence to lobby for projects. Some of them say that they are contractors. They are lawyers who are still practicing. So they have additional income. That's a challenge when you are an opposition MP. So the dynamics are a bit different in that school.
But don't we have minority MPs who are also practicing whatever trade they were in before they joined politics?
Oh, like who?
We have lawyers in there. Are they not practicing?
Give me an example.
We don't have lawyers in the NDC. We don't have
contractors.
Give me
an example of one who's practicing.
I'm just asking you.
I know the NPP ones.
Okay, but you don't know any
NDC
lawyer that's practicing contractor. None of them are practicing.
No, I don't know.
Is that how it works?
I only know the NPP ones.
Is that how it works, Gabriela? That when you go into politics and your party is not in power,
when your party is in power, when your party is in power, it comes with a lot of props. They need you to approve their loan sentence for them when they bring their bills to Parliament. So they reward you with little gestures. And some include contracts, you know? Yeah, so that's the way it goes. So if the executive and the legislative arm of government are having pay cuts, what is going to be the judiciary? Because they are equally part of the Article 71. When are they also coming to tell us how much they are sacrificing? Maybe it's food for thought for the Chief Justice and
Is it time for us to also consider a reduction of the number of ministries that we have? Because that's something that the IEA had mentioned. And I also mentioned, they're saying that even the 16 regional MPs, really, if you're looking at reducing the number of ministers you have, you could start from there. There are some ministries that could be merged. There are some that can be reduced to lower agencies as well. You don't have to be paying them the same salary as ministers and giving them all that money when you can reduce their ranks.
You could do that, but that option, the change actually happens with the leadership, because at the end, the civil service is still going to merge the staff with other ministries, even if you fold up certain ministries. So it's just the leadership that changes, that will be redeployed. But by extension, you could also have a reshuffle, to be very honest.
Okay.
Because the ministries where you have 3 deputies, for what? For what? You have Ministry of Trade, 3 deputies. Ministry of Finance, 3 deputies. Even with the 3 deputies, they can't even think about how we are getting ourselves out of this situation. We have to go for another cabinet retreat to come and tell us how we are going to get ourselves out. They should reduce the numbers there. Ministry. All those ministries with 3 deputies, scrap them. Leave one minister, 1 deputy. In fact, left to keep a minister. All deputies go home. We are cutting expenditure.
How does the minister get support then?
There's a chief director. There's a whole directorate. The deputy minister said the minister orders you about. If you don't get anything doing, you are just in the waste of taxpayers' money. So let's realign those ones. And then I also think that my dear Lorato. Let me jump before I come to Lorato. Now, let's bring the conversation down also to the departments and agencies. Because there are some agencies whose conditions of service are even higher than the president.
Like?
Cocoa Board, DVLA, Social Security. There are a lot of agencies whose take-home pay is higher than what the president takes. So it's time for them also to make some sacrifices.
How much does the CEO of Cocoa Board take? I mean, if you're saying that it's higher, if you can give us...
I think it's about 6 decades now. Because a few years ago, it was 72,000. And that's like 5-6 years ago. And I expect that per the usual 10%, 20% annual increment, it should be hitting about 120,000 by now.
Okay.
And it's juicy, all right. So everybody should be making sacrifices in the public sector.
So they should take politically as well.
The politically exposed ones, or they are the ones who are always enjoying the juicy arrangements.
Okay.
That aside, again, the rent allowances that are paid appointees and directors, I think that this year, next year, that should also be scrapped. Because you're taking about 10% of your salary per year as rent allowance. And many of these already live in their own houses. So that money just comes as extra allowance to them. If you don't live in your own house, you live in a government bungalow. So those ones will get some money from that side as well. Then the full allocations. Everybody gets reduction, 25-30%. They'll make some savings there as well. When they start paying fuel from their pockets, they'll experience what we're all crying about, fuel. They'll make some additional monies from that side as well. So there are a lot of cuts that can be made from the politically appointed side of the NPP administration. And then, as you mentioned, government has already rationalized and cut 20% of their expenditure. But these things have to go back to Parliament to be ratified, so we can get a better appreciation that there's been changes to the budget. And that is what will actually show the true faith that government is actually walking the talk.
So I say we need a new budget?
No, they'll just do a bridge and then give a presentation of what is compared to what we have right now.
Okay.
And then the review of some of their flagship projects. Last time I mentioned that it's very important that they have that conversation. So I'm glad that they took that suggestion up. And I'm not the only person who mentioned it, so many people also mentioned it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do something about it. Target free SHS. You can't abolish free SHS because it's a constitutional provision. And you've already initiated it. So it just has to continue. So target free SHS.
In what way? What should they do about free SHS?
2 things. First of all, I think we know people who right now data is everything, and we have a lot of data with the NIA data. So you can mine the NIA data to know the number of people who earn a certain salary per year, whose income is a certain threshold per year, and then you can use that to gauge with their kids how much they can afford for school fees. So those ones you can use it to get the deprived to get access to what's it called, free SHS. And then I think that, you see, when you go into Europe and America and the rest, for people who pay taxes, even though government takes quite a chunk of their incomes in taxes, there are benefits that the citizens derive from that. So for people who are known to pay taxes, you can target and have them also benefit from the free SHS policy. So that those who don't pay will not benefit. Okay? It's the same way when with healthcare. In some countries where they have free healthcare, access to healthcare is not just because it is free to the whole nation. It's because you pay your taxes. And so the state, as a contractual arrangement, has to ensure that you have the best of healthcare. And I think these are ways where gradually as a country, we also start getting people interested in paying their taxes. Because see, if at the end of the year, I'm going to spend roughly 8,000 to pay my kids' school fees, but my total tax deductions for the year will come to about 5,000. Offset it. I'll be more willing to pay the 5,000 and save the 3,000 than to not pay my taxes and then have to go and pay 8,000. So government has to find initiatives to get the people psyched up into being interested in paying taxes. Of course, when we pay taxes, we also expect that we should get good roads and all that. But let's have a deeper conversation about why we should be paying taxes beyond showing me good roads, because the good roads perhaps is not my time, so the road is not even in front of my house. So I would sit and tell you, I don't see why I should pay tax because my road is not good. But there are other benefits.
Maybe if you pay e-levy, because Professor Adai says that, well, this is the time where we'll have to agree to pay e-levy. Otherwise, you're going to take the money from other places. I remember the finance minister said it.
What they should do is to go back and
it's either the e-levy or then maybe we'll have to start paying extra taxes, petroleum taxes. And already we're complaining about the taxes on our petroleum. And so if we do not agree to e-levy, they're probably going to increase the number of taxes that we may be paying from the petroleum sector.
But why should it be on petroleum? Why should it be on petroleum?
But that's what he said.
It's a proposal. They can go back. They haven't broken down the toll booths yet. So as I mentioned months ago, we can always eat humble pie. Go back and reassign the toll booth agents to collect the 70 million that we are losing per annum with the closure of the toll booths.
But that's not enough at all.
It's still money. It will serve a purpose.
But it's not enough to fix our roads. If we're asking for our roads to be fixed, then 70 million is not enough.
The key to having our roads fixed, the key to having those hospitals built, the key to having affordable housing projects done is for us in government, not myself in government, I'm talking about government generally, is for us as government to mine the NIA data. That mining of the data must happen. That is how you are going to get the people to tax. You see, there's this conversation I was having with in my class a few weeks ago, and we're talking about the informal sector and why every time we bastardize the informal sector. Here are people who could not find jobs, and then per their own grit and will and strength created jobs for themselves. So they're self-employed master craftsmen over years have developed, and they are teaching other people. In this country, have you ever heard GSS graduates and SS graduates say they are going on demonstrations because they don't have jobs? And have you also heard them form an association, like the educated graduates, who would rather form an association than to create jobs for themselves? Because in that sector, for those who graduate GS and SSS, they know very well where their level is. And so they'll go into vocation, technical, mechanical, and find themselves in the informal sector. Now, government needs them to be formalized, because you know that they are making some money. And even if it's not in billions, at least you can get some six-figure plus a few millions attached to it. Equip the assemblies.
Okay.
You know where all these markets are. You know where all these mechanics have created their mechanical zones. Get the assemblies to go out and collect revenues from them, and use that process to also register them their businesses and then to get them formalized.
Okay.
And to pay regular taxes. Because these days you can pay your tax through text, through mobile money. So the system is not as cumbersome as it was years ago, but it's progression. And then gradually government will be able to realize some monies.
All right.
Not just e-levy. Because the challenge with e-levy, government, I think, has lost goodwill with e-levy. And if government forces it on the people will pay reluctantly. You see, when they started the conversation with the 1.75, and they went into negotiation with the minority, and they proposed that they should bring it down, even if they could come to 1%, they should have taken that opportunity and not held ground that they will still maintain the 1.75. I think that was where we've missed the opportunity with the e-levy. And then even if they're trying to force by-elections and all kinds of things just to get the numbers to force e-levy, as I said, people will hesitate to pay that levy. But due to mention that I want to tax petroleum, when I was having a conversation with myself in the mirror because I was trying to fix my face, and I was asking myself, here we are in the city. I worry about fuel from morning till evening because I use diesel and I'm paying above 10 cedis.
Yeah.
The only good thing is that my car has a small tank, so I can make noise all right, but at the end of the day, I still manage it. And I was asking myself, so the trotro driver in my village and the taxi drivers in my village are all paying the same amount as me.
Yeah.
Their income per month is less because I know that on average many of them make 1,000 cedis in a month, but these are the same environments that they find themselves in. So if you want to continue taxing it, it only means that you are impoverishing more people. Because when you look at the middle class and the upper class, if that's lower middle, upper middle, high class, they don't even make 40% of this population. Majority are still in the hinterlands.
But at least we know the government is going to cut down on the taxes on petroleum at the moment.
Yes, at
and
the
we're
moment.
expecting the finance minister to make that announcement as well.
And again, if something happens again, since it appears that this NPP government does not know how to strategize and to position this country against external shocks and will blame everything on the external shocks, another crisis will come somewhere on the globe and they'll come and tell us that because of that crisis, fuel prices have gone up again. And this marginal reduction that we had will just be another 9-day wonder.
Let me bring Lerato in to respond to some of the concerns that Gabriela has made, because she says that cut down on your deputy ministers. There's a lot of things that you can do, even with the workers at the presidency and all of that.
I get a bit worried when people who've been in positions before make some of the statements Gabriela made about presidential staffers.
Why?
She was one, right? Is that what she was doing? Was she just sitting down, driving around and doing that? I don't think she was doing that. I don't think she was doing that. You know, she said there were over 6.
I am just one.
Please allow her. Please allow her, and then you come in.
Even they who, when in power, didn't introduce any social interventions or any serious flagship programs, had over 600 people sitting at the presidency. Gabriela being one. See, I have a problem with people courting unnecessary disaffection for people. Can she name one person, one presidential staffer, one person at the Jubilee House who is sitting idle, doing nothing and taking salary?
Are there people who are there and all they do is respond to social media comments? Is that true? Because that's a claim that we've heard from the minority over and over.
I don't know anybody who sits down and just responds to social media claims. Everybody in there has a shadow that cuts across the government's priorities. If she knows anybody sitting down there, I think she should let us know. It's all part of we trying to check how things are run and what our money is used for. So she should be a citizen and let us know the person or the people sitting down there doing nothing and taking our money. I think some of these things we need to be very careful about them.
But we increased budget allocation to the presidency, and there were concerns that even that money was too much, because really
the economy
is not doing too well. Why are we allocating so much money to the presidency?
Bella, goes beyond just the staffers. What do you want? All those other interventions are under the office of the president. You may want to check that. It goes beyond, the presidency goes beyond just the staffers working there at the Jubilee House. It goes beyond that. Even in our previous thing, some of the specialized ministries that were created were under the office of the president. So let's be clear on that. It's high time we stop causing unnecessary disaffection for us as people within that space, including Gabriella.
But
she's working for them to come. She's saying all these things for them to come back to power.
Was that not too high?
Tomorrow, if she's sitting down there and someone says, I said, check the office of the president, what goes under it. I mentioned one.
But all these, flagship programs we're told are going to be reviewed as well.
Come again?
All these flagship programs that you're talking about that are under the presidency.
We are talking about a holistic budget adjustment.
I do get you, but what I'm saying is
so
that
whatever the government's programs are, Bella, don't let us go ahead of the finance minister. There was a cabinet retreat. Items discussed were put out. The information minister was specific that the finance minister will address, as he was specific the monetary policy committee will come out with a statement. The statement for the monetary policy committee has come out today at 1 p.m. The minister responsible for finance speaks as the Ministry of Finance. Let's wait and listen and don't let us speculate. Gabriella agrees there's need for pay cuts, appealing to everyone who cares to hear in leadership to adhere to that call. Why not minority MPs? Why shouldn't that appeal go? We have been emphatic, government appointees, and government appointees goes beyond the Jubilee House. Government appointees will be taking a 30% salary cut.
And you think minority
MPs
should?
The appeal is being extended to the other arms of government. Nobody is forcing them. But the fact that you oppose it, this is the same opposition that says, look for other options of raising money.
But the minority MPs have explained why they cannot take a salary cut.
The inconsistency, with all due respect, nobody forces anybody to go into leadership. Apart from those who are appointed, those who go for elective positions go on their own terms. And in every election, even if it's class prefect election, it's you either win or lose. When you win, you are part of leadership. When you lose, you're coming from a member like me. We are at a point in our country that we need to get resources at all points. We need to look inward. We need to prioritize domestic resource mobilization. A lot of interventions have been proposed. The nitty-gritties will be given this afternoon. But one of the suggestions, one of the appeals is a salary cut of 30% by leadership. That cuts across the executive, legislature, and the judiciary, which Gabriella made a fine appeal to, and I also agreed to it. Why not? Are they not part of parliament?
They say they don't have enough by the time they pay.
Are they no longer the people's representatives?
Remember there was a 28 million dollars
all these monies that we are going. Even if the opposition is saying, the government of the day is saying, we are taking a 30% salary cut. The MPs on the other side, the opposition, in the spirit of patriotism, and there is the spirit of the care they claim they have for the people they represent. Why not say, okay, we are in opposition, we can do 30%, we'll do 10%. Show some form of care, show some form of leadership, and that's the appeal.
Would you not have called them out if they had even said we'll do a 9%? When everybody else is taking maybe a 30% or a 20%?
The appeal is 30%. But you saying an outright no, you don't care about the people anymore. The same people you claim shouldn't pay e-levy. Today we are looking at other alternatives, the same suggestion you see, is this inconsistency when it comes to competition. Look at how Gabriela went around appealing to everybody.
I'm helping with your governance.
To go with, and
because you lack ideas. So I'm giving you ideas.
You know, appealing to everybody to adhere to this pay cut. And you want to find a nice way of saying opposition MPs are not part. See, it's this attitude that brings us to, you can decide to score whatever political points you can. So when we tell you that all they think about is the next election and not the next generation, we are right.
They have given reasons why. Ministers are getting fuel for free. They don't have to pay for fuel.
No, but
they don't have to pay for a number of things. They're getting some benefits. The MPs do not get these benefits. And so if you're expecting these MPs to also take a cut, when they're already paying for loans and a number of other things, buying their own fuel,
it's not all ministers
who are in too much?
It's not all MPs who are ministers.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And you're talking about boards. When you go by the Ministry of Finance approved rates for boards, how much is board sitting allowance? It can do something. It can buy fuel. It can buy food. It can help someone out. But is that what the MPs survive on? And Gabriela is telling us they don't have lawyers. At least if I don't know anyone, I know lawyer Dafia Moko. There's lawyer Mama Yariga, and there's one who has been playing hide and seek with the police lately. Is it the Madina?
Yeah.
Yes, Honorable Susu.
Have they told you that they are working?
Gabriela, if you don't know, you said you haven't seen any lawyers. I'm drawing your attention that you have lawyers on the side. At least if nothing at all. I've read and heard news of at least lawyer Dafia Mako going to court on issues that necessarily do have to do with permit. So she can cross-check.
But they're in the public interest.
And Gabriela sits and says we don't have ideas. What ideas? We brought e-levy. You said no. Bring it to 1%. All of a sudden, we don't want it. We are looking at other ways of doing it.
They say cut down your ministers.
Cut down your ministers.
Cut down the ministries as well. You can merge some of them. You can reduce some of them to
there are interventions. You just don't get up and start doing cuts all over. You give the system a shock.
You give the system a shock.
I'm not saying you give a system a shock when you cut down on ministers, but there are interventions that are being introduced. You don't just get up and start meddling with everything. These are the same people who come and say, why are you doing this? They need to be a bit consistent. The fact that you are in opposition doesn't mean you should oppose everything.
It's not just the opposition that's asking for you to cut down. Professor Adai is asking that you cut down.
And what did Professor Adai say? Professor Adai says is show of leadership. Is the minority in parliament part of leadership or not of this country? They represent constituencies. They represent constituencies.
If they are not willing to,
MPs
what about you? What about your government?
The moment you are elected as a member of parliament, you no longer represent a party technically. You represent the citizens of a constituency. So are they no part of leadership? If we are going by what Professor Adai said.
Let's just say they are not willing to. And that's the question I'm asking, because we've had other agencies also say that cut down on the number of ministries from 30 to 20. Reduce your number of ministers. If you have to get rid of your deputy ministers, do so. We're trying to save money here.
Yes,
at the end of the day, it is your party that's the part. And so if you're trying to sort of equalize with the minority and say that they also have to show leadership, at the end of the day, it is your party that is in power. You don't think so?
And we don't have a problem. There's going to be a 30% salary cut for government appointees. And I've made that point. The government appointees goes beyond those in Jubilee.
What about reducing the number of ministers, which is what we're asking?
Let me go on. After the retreat, when you listen to the statement that came out, even with the petroleum industry, there's going to be a specialized kind of market for forex because exchange rate is one of the components of this price build-up. And that's a way of, and I can't confirm, but I think for one of the oil marketing companies, rates are reduced to about 6 point something, 30 something pesos or so. I can't confirm that for now.
Which marketing company?
I think it's Shell. I can't. You can cross check.
Okay.
But
if you can help me, please.
That's it's being done. The prime rate has been increased to 17% to stabilize the city because of all this. But once there's supply, definitely demand can be.
But that's a long-term thing, by the way, which you're aware of,
because
things are going to get even more difficult now. Lending rates are going higher.
It's going to get.
So it's not going to be a one-time thing.
It's going to get difficult because before it gets better. No doubt about that. Even what do the same economists say? What's the Latin phrase again? Ceteris paribus. All other things being equal. We're not in normal times.
Okay.
You get it. These are interventions that are put in. So if we want to make it seem as if that's the salary cut is the only thing we brought. The other measures that the Ministry of Finance will
we're talking about pumping some $2 billion into the...
That's what I mentioned.
Where's the money coming from?
Where's the money coming from? Let's listen to the Minister of Finance.
Do we have that money, by the way?
Let's listen to the Minister of Finance.
Do we have that money?
I don't want to preempt what the Minister of Finance is going to say. Don't also forget that we are just not in this country. We're still paying tax. When you take your salary this month, you pay your income tax. All those monies are coming in. But the world has gotten to a point where we need to strengthen domestic resource mobilization. So all those other forms. And what did Gabriela say? Let's mine the national ID information and make sure people pay.
Okay.
There are lots of professionals that have been identified of not paying. How were they identified? Because we are running this system, because of the digitalization agenda.
Okay.
You know, so interventions are being put in place, and I believe that if we all come to the table and we all ensure that whatever little we pay, we follow up to make sure that it's used to do what it's supposed to do, I don't think we'll be having some of these conversations years down the line.
Gabriela, should your MPs be at least suggesting that instead of 30% or 20%, we'll take about 10% from our salary? Maybe that way they show more leadership.
Bella, I know MPs, whose salary, end of the month, doesn't even come to 1,000 Ghana. MPs, because they owe loans that they are using those salaries to pay. So the conversations about the MPs, I think it should keep on going, so that whether they'll do 5% or 10%, they'll come to some arrangement. But I know very well that NDC side, MPP side, many of them is not that rosy.
Okay.
On their salaries. She keeps insisting that we should wait for the finance minister. Do we really have a choice? The only person in this country whose net value increases whilst our debt also increases. The more we borrow, the richer he becomes.
How so?
But you know his companies are the ones who are leading all our Eurobond arrangements. He and the other one, what's his name?
Is it Enterprise? He resigned from Enterprise, did he not?
Oh, my dear, if today he's out of office and he calls Enterprise, I need 1 million. They'll arrange the 1 million and send to him.
And you don't have a fight.
It is life. There are some things you don't argue over. It is life. Here, let's focus her conversation. She said, we did not come up with any social intervention program. Here I am saying that 600 of us were in the Jubilee House, yet we could not come with any social intervention program. They were there over half of what we were. we are 600. They're over 1,000. And yet they've not even done one single proper project that we can lay hands and tell the people of Ghana, since President Akufo-Addo came to office 6 years, that is what he has done.
In our one district, one factory.
How many districts with factories? Let me land before you think I even rolls off. Bella.
There are over 100 factories.
Bella, when, please, I don't have time. Please, I don't have time. I don't have time to start with this morning. When our appointees took 10% salary pay cut, they did something profitable for this country. They increased the number of chips compounds from 240 to 24,000. You can go and, 2,400. You can go and cross check. Plus the other ones that the budget supported, total chips compound in this country came to over 4,800. To date, they could only boast of 8 chips compounds. They should tell us what they will be using these monies for. So wait for the finance minister. We hope that he's not going to find another instrument or vehicle to collect this money and have one of his data bank or one of his companies come and manage this fund for us so that his net value keeps increasing whilst our debt also increases.
All right. Well, that's it for today, and then that's how we wrap up on the big issue today. Let me just take a quick message from one of my guests. Minority being asked to take a salary cut is a joke. That's from Honorable Sam George. We were not part of the mismanagement of the economy. We as members of the minority were not appointed to any boards. Every NPP is either minister, deputy minister, or a board chairman or a member. The minority has worked hard to protect the public purse. The waste is not from parliament. It is from the excesses of government. Are they asking the judges to also take a pay cut? They should stop majoring in the minors. Okay, well, happy birthday, quick one, going out to Janelle Estelle Khadija Kote of Give Praise School Complex at Kim Tafo. This is from your mom Rafia to Kote of Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana. It's your 10th birthday. God bless you. Also, happy 12th birthday to Peyton Kukwa Asida Banson of Morning Star School from your dad Fifi Banson and the entire family. And also to Senior Bloby Brigadier General IB Quarte from your Commander-in-Chief Mrs. Joyce Quarte and the children. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Mrs. Juliet Opon, aka Obaya, authentic CEO of Authentic Beauty Parlor, of Michelle Camp Matiko from your friends Waski and Akins. And Anayo says that the NDC MPs took a pay cut of 10% when in power. Did the MPP MPs do same? When you were warned about the wastage in the system, you defended it. When you were warned about the flamboyant lifestyle of the executive, you protected it. When you were warned about the elephant-sized government of the MPP, you bastardized it. When you were advised to roll out your flagship program, you mocked it. Now that they have squandered everything to the bone, today we should do it in. Okay, that's from Nanaya, and that should be it for this morning on the big issue. Of course, TV3Newday continues. I've been here with Gabriela Tete. She's a member of the NDC communications team, and Laratu Busa Saka is a member of the NPP communications team. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. We'll be back with more, and sports is coming up. Of course, we are gearing up for the big one tomorrow, Ghana Black Stars and the Super Eagles of Nigeria. I'm sure we'll give you more details on that, and that exclusive we had with the Nigerian coach. We'll be back.